So what we're going to be doing in this tutorial is we're going to be using the standard distance tool, but we're going to be using the Arcpy version of the standard distance tool. So how do we do this? So first what we have is we just have a map, we have some points. And now what we need to do, we need to use Arcpy in order to use this tool in Python. So let's just open that up. So what we need to do first is we need to create a new Python file. Let me right click that. Okay, a new Python file. I'm just going to call this create standard distance file. Standard distance layer. So I've created a new Python file, and now in order to use the standard distance tool, which you have in Arcmap, standard distance, we first need to import Arcpy, and then what I'm going to do is I'm just going to be setting up the workspace, and I'll be doing this all in functions. I just want to do this first bit outside of a function. And in order to create a where my files will be saved to, I'm just going to create a location of a path directory. So this is a raw file directory, meaning just this is a raw, this is like the exact location where stuff will be saved to. So I'm going to be making inside this file, going into output. And so this will be wherever my new files will be saved to. And then I want to be setting up my workspace, so in order to do that, I can just create a function called exactly that, setting up workspace. And that's how you create a function in Python. And then I want to, using Arcpy, I want to set up my environment. And all that this does is that it tells Python where to get files and such from. So I'm just going to pretty much be doing the exact same thing as here, only it's going to be a little different. It's going to be the geodatabase like thing. It's going to be so let me just go back, I'll show you. So this weeds data here, this is reporting to, if I go to Arcmap, I can show you, it's reporting to this file, the weeds data, as a .mdb. So this is like a folder which ArcGIS uses, and it holds shape files and feature classes and stuff like that. So so this is my file in question. .mdb, and then I'm just going to get out the exact points file which I'll be using. So in order to use standard distance tool, what you have is you have a bunch of points. I don't know if it works with polygons, but with a bunch of points you need to first identify the points layer and then use that to create the standard distance from those points. And essentially what the standard distance does is that it identifies like the spread of features from its center. So if there's lots of features, for example here, then the center will be about here somewhere, and then it'll create a standard deviation, either 1, 2, or 3 from that center to show you the spread of points. So I need to identify my points layer. So I know my points layer in my case is I know this is it. So if I just click on this, I could get the raw directory. So this would be the exact path, but I don't need to do this in my case because I've already set up the workspace. So the workspace just tells the program where to get files from. So since I've set up my workspace, if I didn't have this, then I would need to do the exact location, but I do have it, so I can just do just this. And that will work just fine. This isn't a directory, so I can get rid of raw. It's just the name of the file, so it's just a string. And then I can use print, and this is just to, I do this at the end of every function just to say that everything's working. So I'm going to say workspace setup. And then what I needed to do is I need to get this file, this points file, and I need to change it into a type which Arcpy can use as like a layer that it can use to do things like the standard distance module, for example. So I'm just going to say make layers, and I will send it points. So what I'm doing here is I'm creating a new function, which I haven't made just yet, so I need to make it. So creating a function called make layers, and it takes in some data layer, right? So it takes in some data layer, and in my case, I'm calling the function make layers, and I'm sending it points. And this is a function, so it has a column like that. And so what I want this to do is I want to create a new layer which Arcpy can use. So remember, it can't just use the points as themselves, it needs to be converted first. So I'm just going to convert this, so points layer is equal to Arcpy dot make feature layer management. So what this will do, right, is it will take in the input data, so the data layer, and then it will spit out a points layer in our case. So what make feature layer management does is if I go to the documentation for this, it creates a feature layer from an input feature class or layer file. So we have our points, that's our input feature class, and we're making a feature layer which we can use. That's what we're doing. And how it works is it has a mandatory input features and mandatory output layer. So back in IntelliJ, so this is our output layer, which I'm saving as points layer, essentially. And it also takes in optional other parameters if you wanted to put in that kind of stuff. It's important to note the data type that it takes in. So it takes in a feature layer and it prints out a feature layer. I am saving this feature layer as a new variable. So this points layer is a new variable and it is a feature layer. Great. So we're done with that. So now we're just going to print new layer created, just to inform us that it's definitely working. If it didn't work, it would just cause an error, and then I'd have to like fix it. But I know that this will work because I've already tested it ahead of time. And then we're going to create a new function again, and this is going to actually use the actual standard distance tool. So this is a new function which we haven't made yet. It's red underlined because it says, it's trying to input stuff. You want to create class, create function, doesn't know what to do with this because it doesn't exist yet. So when you create a new function or whatever, and this takes in some parameter, it will take in a layer, colon, the function. There we go. And then we're going to need to do something first. So I'll keep a line open just for a second. And we'll create a new variable called area. Arcpy.standardDistanceStats. So here we have the layer, and it's being sent into here. So the layer points layer is now called layer. Actually, I'll just call it the same thing. So we have our points layer, right? And the standard distance tool in Arcmap does certain things, it requires certain things, just like the Arcpy version of the exact same thing. So standard distance, right, in Arcpy it's called standard distance underscore stats. It has certain parameters, it has an input feature class. We already have that. That is our layer. That's our points layer. Then it takes in a output standard distance feature class. This is just saying like, what is the name of our output file, pretty much. What is our output feature class? It's the same as the other module we did. So I'm just going to do that. So you could just put it in here like this, but I'm just going to create a new variable because it might be a bit long. So I'm just going to call this output layer. We'll just call it. Output layer is equal to, we're going to call this output file output underscore standard distance. It's going to be a shape file. So I'm just labeling the type of the file that we're going to be saving it as. So then I can just put that in here. Remember, I could also do it like that if I wanted to. And then it also takes in another thing, a circle size. So circle size is a string, and it can be either one of these three things. So it's 1 standard deviation, 2 standard deviations, or 3 standard deviations. I'm going to say just the string of 1 standard deviation. So this is how many standard deviations from the center of the points that the circle will be created from. Remember, this is a string, so this is why it's red underlined. It said the type is clearly a string type. And then it also has these optionals, weight field and case field, and they also appear in the actual standard distance tool, which you have in Arcmap if you wanted to do that as well. But anyway, now that we've done that, we can now go and just say print layer was standard distance tool was used, and now this hasn't actually been saved. So we've used the tool, but we haven't saved the output layer as a new file. So in order to do that, we have to do save as new layer, and then I'm just going to pass in the area, and then I'm just going to create this again as a function. And I'm just going to say it takes in area. Remember, this parameter can be called anything. A parameter just holds a position. So if it takes in 2 parameters, it would be like x and y. But ours takes in just 1 parameter, just x, or just area, for example. So I'm just going to call it exactly what it is. And then I just want to convert that file to a feature class. So in order to do that, you do Arcpy, and you do feature class to feature class conversion. And all that it does is converts a shapefile coverage feature class or geodatabase feature class to a shapefile or geodatabase feature class. That's all that does. And it takes in some parameters, so an in features, out path, and an out name. So input is the area. The out path, which is a global, which we've set up here, and a name for this file that we're creating. We're just going to call it output underscore standard deviation. I'm just going to say print finished. And now we can just run all this and use the tool. So let's just do that. So if we just call the first one's name, it will then begin running. So we'll just call their name, and then it will immediately set the workspace, get the file in question, print this, and then it will move on to the next function and insert this value into the data layer. And then it'll do all of its thing, and then it will call the next function, standard deviation area, and so on and so on and so on. So let's just let me just prove to you that this is working. So if I went to output currently, if I hit run on this, you'll see that the prints will start going one at a time, and then once it gets to finish, we'll see an output. And then when that happens, we can then just pull in the layer as we would any other layer. So let's just wait for this to finish. Yep. Okay, workspace setup. That's the first function done. It's now going on to the second function. New layer created. That's the second function done. And then we'll have the third function done in a second. There it is, and fourth function done. Finished. Great. So now if we go to the output location, you can see that our file has been created. And now if we went to Arcmap, went to the catalog section, and then if we went to output, I'll just refresh this just in case, and then if we open up output, we can see that our file is here. So then if we can just drag and drop that in, and there you go, there is one standard distance from the center of our points layer. And that is how you use a Arcmap tool in Python. And if you want to use any other tool, all you have to do is just pretty much just search up its name, or you can just open up the toolbox or whatever. find the tool in question and just Google that. Just Google Arcpy and the tool's name. For example, arcpy.corridor, let's just say. Hope you've learned something.